When you think of accounting and finance, what comes to mind? Don't worry, this is not my course. I have something just a little more special planned for you. Do you want to learn about accounting and finance in a way that you've never been taught before? Of course you do. My visual approach will teach you everything you need to know, and it will be a lot of fun. In fact, you'll wonder why you weren't taught this way in school. Oh, and if you get a moment, please check out the student reviews to see how so many people have enjoyed the learning experience. And you know what the best part is? No experience is necessary to take this course. So if you don't know how to model and value a company, analyze a cash flow statement, or understand the difference between growth and value investing, not to worry. We will cover all of those concepts from scratch. So why should you learn accounting and finance from me? I have an MBA in finance from Columbia University. But more importantly, I have work experience in the real world, from Goldman Sachs to several hedge funds, to venture capital and consulting firms. I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career. Now I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge and experience. My life has turned full circle, from my own education to my experience in business, to investing in and founding several companies. Instead of teaching boring finance and accounting theory, I teach based on my own real-life practical experience, and it has led me right here to you. I want you to understand how to create, analyze, and forecast an income statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement. I want you to thoroughly understand and enjoy finance and accounting so that you can be inspired to achieve all of your career goals. I have the tools needed to get the job done. So let's do it. I'll see you in class. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our 264th weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so this is an AMA, like you see on Reddit, AMA meaning Ask Me Anything. You can ask me business questions, career questions, investing questions, etc. And my humble goal is to help you take your career, your company, etc. to the next level. So without further ado, let's begin. One housekeeping comment. Next week, there will be no webcasts on Thursday. So Thursday, February 29th, there's no webcast because I'm going to Arizona for a conference. All right, let me kick it off with Enerben. Great to see you. Chetan, great to see you as well. Thank you for that wonderful comment. Lots of love to you back to India from the United States. And then Gabs wrote, hey, Professor, hi. I live in Virginia. Sure. And I want to understand how job openings might affect a certain sector and what might be the effects, for example, in the banking and finance industry. Yeah, absolutely. So Virginia has 24 companies in the S&P 500. The two largest financial services companies as part of the S&P 500 in Virginia include Freddie Mac, which is a mortgage company sort of owned by the government. Okay, and the other one is Capital One. Now, Capital One just announced a massive deal to acquire or merge with Discover, a big credit card company. And that might become the biggest credit card company in the world, maybe bigger than Visa and MasterCard. Given the fact that that's been announced, I expect there to be job cuts because there's usually synergies and the investment bankers recommend cutting people where there's an overlap. So I don't think you'll find many new job openings in Virginia at this point in the finance sector. Now, Virginia is much more influenced by the defense contractor sector. You know, Airbus is there, which is owned by EADS, which is the European equivalent of Boeing. Also, there is Raytheon, General Dynamics, etc. But regardless of what job you want to get, you know, the rules are all the same. If you see a job opening online, and this is a generic answer to go to everybody in this call, every time you see a job opening online, you have literally a 1 in 250 shot of getting that job. So who gets the job? Well, it's the person that knows somebody at the company, in almost all cases. So I don't recommend applying for jobs whenever you see an opening. What I recommend doing is aggressively networking to get informational meetings, to meet 20 or 30 people at a company you want to work at by leveraging LinkedIn InMails. And then you just network, bond before discussing business in those meetings, and then ask if they're hiring. And I have a student that grew up in the ghetto, and he told me that he learned the hard way that closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to ask if you're hiring. And for more details on how to do that, You can check out my MBA degree programs at harounmba.com. Also, if you go to my website, you can download a book called Networking to get a job. This is my son and I, Project Magoo. Let me go here, sorry. You can go to my website, harounmba.com, and scroll down to the bottom, and you can download this book for free. Networking to get customers a job or anything you want. Yeah. So while I'm on this page, many of you know that the profits from what I do go towards building schools. This is one of my amazing students, Vital, who I met actually at a Udemy conference in Berlin in 2000, I think it was 2018 or so. And we finished our school in Rwanda last year. This is my son, Matthew. And we have solar on the roof, etc. And what we're doing is we're building our next one, which is going to be in a 6-hour drive from the Nairobi airport in Kenya with another one of my amazing students, Marin Koros. The school is going to be called the Leah Koros Memorial School for Girls in honor of her mother. Okay. All right, Pulaski, great to see you. And then Gabs wrote here also another personal question. I'm a banking and finance graduate. I just got to the United States because I used to live abroad. What would be the best companies to apply for in 6 months to a year? Yeah. Oof. It's hard for me to answer that because every sector seems to be cutting right now. And I think you also asked the question, you're based in Virginia. I would probably not look at financial services companies where you're based in Virginia, given the number of people that are going to be leaving Discover, given the Capital One merger. I probably look at government contractors like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, etc. But more importantly, I would try to focus on what you're most passionate about. And for those of you that aren't sure what your passion is in life yet, here's how to come up with it. Imagine that for the next 30 days, you're not allowed to travel, you can't go to school, and you can't work. What would you do with your time? Whatever that is your passion, your purpose, your raison d'être. And no matter what anybody says, you go after that. And as Confucius said, find an occupation you enjoy and you'll never work another day for the rest of your life. And it's my humble job to help you also find your passion. Yeah. And Rahul, thank you so much for that donation. Lots of love back to you from India. That will go directly to Project Magoo. Thank you. Okay. And then Gabs also wrote, by the way, I have all your courses on Udemy. Thank you. And I've been inspired by all that you teach there. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate it. And for anybody that wants to learn to teach online, let me know. I want to help you. You know, we all have something to teach. And when one teaches, two learn. It's the best side hustle out there. And you don't have to be an expert in any particular sector. You just have to be passionate about a topic. For example, my kids, I have 3 boys, as many of you know. They're teenage boys now. But they love playing this game, Fortnite. And there's a guy many of you know named Ninja. And he makes millions of dollars streaming every year, Fortnite. He started out teaching on Udemy on how to use streaming applications. So teach what you love doing, and I promise you the money will come eventually. There's even a one teacher named Teresa Greenway. This is a great story. So she was in an abusive marriage in the United States, and she had the courage to leave the jerk she was married to and take her children with her. And she was living off of food stamps. And she thought, what can I do? How can I help people? How can I earn income? And she loves to bake bread. And so she created courses on Udemy on how to bake bread. How prophetic is that? Anybody can do it. And I'm here to humbly help you do it as well. As Seth Godin said, you already have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself. You have a cell phone, which has video and audio, you can teach. Okay, and if you want to know exactly what to teach, and I don't get any brownie points from this from Udemy, if my courses suck, many of them do, the algorithm just won't recommend them. But I think everybody needs to teach. And again, when one teaches, two learn. And again, if you have questions on how to do that, I'm here to help you. Okay, good. All right. And in order to find out what to teach, let's say you want to teach business courses like I do, or finance courses, or personal development, or AI courses like I do. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my courses, and I want you to look at the reviews, but only look at the 1-star reviews, right? And there's tons of them. And find the problems with my courses and make a better version, right? It's educational Darwinism and the student wins. All right. I got to be the worst salesperson ever. At least I'm honest. All right, next up, we have Kim, who wrote, "Good morning, Coach. How are you? Where can I find information to find funding to buy businesses in Greece and the EU?" Yeah. So if you're looking to do private equity and it's a smaller cap company, you can always look at companies that are publicly traded on the European exchanges. If you want to buy private companies, that's a lot harder. Yeah. I'm not sure what the answer would be. I know that in the United States and in the tech industry in general, you can go to crunchbase.com to find private companies. Or what you can do is this. You can find a list of private companies that are venture capital backed in Europe. And then what you do is you go to the venture capital website and you look at which partners in those venture capital firms invest in which companies. Let me show you an example. So let's go together to sequoiacap.com. Now, Sequoia is the best venture capital firm in history. The top 10 venture capital firms in the world have 1% of their portfolios become unicorns, okay, meaning have a valuation of $1 billion. Sequoia has 5%. It's ridiculous how good they are. And you'll notice here that they profile all the executives right here, less so the companies, right? Pictures of the executives right here. Of course, last night, NVIDIA posted amazing earnings. They beat revenue and earnings by more than 10% again for the third quarter in a row. Market cap is approaching $2 trillion. Their operating margins are 69%. It's unbelievable. But what I would do is you go here to our team, okay? And this is the same way it works on every single venture capital website, okay? You go to the team here, and then what you do, let me go here, our companies. Oh, it's not working. Come on, Sequoia. Okay, but you click here on our team, and I'll go to another website too. It's fun doing these things live. I'll go to a16z.com. That's Andreessen Horowitz's website. Okay, it's another venture capital firm. It's called a16z.com because in between A and Z, or Z as we say in Canada, are 16 letters. Then you go here to team. Okay, then right here, what you do is you select whatever sector it is you're most interested in. Okay, and then what you do is you look at what companies these people are on the board of. So let's say that you want to invest in a crypto company, okay, that's private. You click here, and then what you'll do is you can look to see what boards these people are on. Yeah. Maybe it's my browser right now. Let me try again. Give me 1 second. Anyway, just click on any partner and you'll see what companies they're on the boards of. Okay. Moving on. Okay, next up, Jahanzeb wrote, "Can you tell me about the process to be followed once we've developed a business plan for our startup, like funding documents required and other related matters to be looked into for obtaining funding?" Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what I recommend doing is, number one, you write a business plan. And I help you do that in my MBA degree programs in the Venture Capital Bootcamp portion of the MBA program. Then once you have that done, what I create for you automatically, after you create the 100-page business plan, I create for you 10 slides. And the 10 slides it's your presentation pitch deck to talk to investors. And you want to model it on the Airbnb pitch deck. Okay, and never have more than 3 images or 3 bullet points per slide. Do a search on Airbnb pitch deck if you want to. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get a lawyer, of course, to register your company, just in case something goes wrong. I don't want shareholders to come after your personal assets. Then your lawyer is going to create what's called a term sheet. And you're going to sit down with your investors. And your investors are going to look through the term sheet, okay? And the term sheet is about 10 to 15 pages. It's not legally binding, but it just outlines the terms, meaning the terms on what percent of the company the investor might own if they want to invest. Then after the term sheet is created and you've signed, and so have the investors, then what's going to happen is your lawyers are going to create investment offering memorandums and all the paperwork for you. There's tons of legal paperwork to go into it. And it's before you invest in any company, even publicly traded companies, you got to read the investment offering memorandum, right? This is Meta's S1 or investment offering memorandum from 2012. Yeah. So make sure your lawyer does all the paperwork. Yeah. Last thing I'll say about that is if investors tell you they want to invest 10 million, cut it in half. Because at the last second, usually people cut back big time. Always do that, just to be conservative. Yeah. One more quick tidbit in terms of Facebook.
So when Mark Zuckerberg was raising money, back, I think it was in 2004 or 5, he went to meet with tons of venture capitalists. And there's one venture capitalist that I know well. She's a professor at Stanford, Teresa. She's great. She worked at Excel, and she won the deal. And the reason she won the deal was because when she met with Zuckerberg, she brought 3 term sheets, and she kept them in her bag, right? She was preemptive. Like Sun Tzu in The Art of War, every battle is won before it's been fought. And the term sheets all had different valuations on them. One was for 50 million, the other was for 100, the other was for 150. And she gauged his interest and what the competition, other venture capital firms, wanted to charge or wanted to value the company at. And she was able to pull out the 3rd or highest term sheet, valuing Facebook at $150 million. And if you have any questions about legal matters, I'm not a lawyer, I always recommend going to LegalZoom.com. I'm not sponsored by anybody, nor will I ever be. I'm always true to and pure to you, my students. You're my customer. But go to LegalZoom.com and hire a lawyer for dirt cheap there. Yeah, that's what I do. Okay. Okay. All right. Next up, Rajesh wrote, hello and greetings, coach. Great to see you. Toby, how are you? Great to see you. MTI, good morning to you. Chris, how are you? Moving on to Loic, who wrote, Chris, how does the Complete Financial Analyst Training and Investing course differ from your introduction of finance, accounting, modeling, and valuation? Thanks for all the value you provide. Yeah. So if you already own the Complete Financial Analyst Training and Investing course, do not buy the introduction of finance, accounting, modeling, valuation course, because the Complete Financial Analyst course is much more comprehensive than the other finance courses that I have. Yeah. Or if you already bought it, the Intro to Finance one, just ask for a refund. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Chris Loader wrote here. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, I just started my post-university job search in the United Kingdom. I got a free month of LinkedIn Premium. Awesome. How can I best use it? I've contacted some alumni at companies I like, but how can I progress at this stage? Yeah. So first of all, have an incredible LinkedIn profile. And if you want, Chris, what I can do, you got to give me permission, is I can go to your LinkedIn profile right now and give you real-time feedback. If you want me to do this, you can type in the URL right there, but in between the dots, you have to write DOT. So LinkedIn, DOT, COM, and then slash, and then whatever the name is there, because YouTube strips out the URLs. So yeah, make sure you have an amazing LinkedIn profile. And what I want you to do is I want you to network with people who have at least 2 things in common with you. Number 1, they went to the same uni or university you went to in the United Kingdom. Number 2, they have something else in common. Maybe they went to the same high school as you. Maybe from the same hometown. Then I want you to send an in-mail, not an email, an in-mail only, because everybody reads in-mails. And in the in-mail, what you should write is this. Subject line doesn't even matter, just hi. John, hope all is well. I also went to X uni, and I'm also from yada yada, or went to the same high school as you. Please let me know if you have time for a quick coffee or tea. Thank you, Chris. That's it. You keep it simple. And people will respond, I promise you. And when they respond to an in-mail, you actually don't get charged for that in-mail. So if you have 5 in-mails per month to send, and somebody responds, that doesn't count as one of them. When somebody doesn't respond, it doesn't count. And then during that one-on-one meeting, I can coach you through exactly what to say. Just let me know if you have follow-up questions. Okay. Next up, Ryan wrote, hey, Chris. Hey, Ryan. I just used your networking advice, and I had a great meeting with directors and C-level executives from Deloitte and others today. I love it. Nice. I love it. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I'm adding some sort of value here. Yeah. Now, here's another tip for you. If you or anybody in this call want to meet with any CEO or any C-level executive, it's easy and it's free. And here's how you do it. Go online, do a search for annual shareholder meeting of whatever company it is that you want to meet a C-level executive at. Then go to the shareholder meeting. And this is great if you want to get a job or customers, etc., or just network. Go to the shareholder meeting. And then what happens is the shareholder meetings are usually pretty boring. Not many people go to them, just like old investors, and they give you bad coffee. Then at the end of the shareholder meeting, what happens is The CEO and other C-level executives don't leave until everybody else does, because they want to set a good example for other employees there and board members. Then you go up to the CEO and you introduce yourself. You exchange business cards. And you just network with them and say, I'm really interested in, I'm passionate about your company and here are the reasons why. And I'd love to work at your company. Can you please let me know if you have any openings in this department? And the CEO is going to be in front of a lot of board members and they're going to say something like this. Sure, why don't you talk to John Stevenson in HR about this role? Then you say thank you. Then you go to LinkedIn and you send an email to John Stevenson and you say, I met with your CEO today and she recommended that I reach out to you. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee. Thanks. Do you think they're going to answer that? You bet your bottom dollar they will. Yeah. Always go right to decision makers in business. Don't waste your time talking to somebody that's not a decision maker. Yeah. Okay, next up, Rajesh wrote, last week, if you remember, I'm getting old, man. I have senior moments. The older I get, the better I was. Let me see here. Last week, if you remember, you gave me advice for my venture capital meeting. Well, I networked really well, and I was able to put forth important points. And I've got a meeting set forth with a VC office. Nice. Excellent. I love it. Nicely done. Now, for earlier stage companies, what I recommend doing is try to network and meet with high net worth investors. And the reason I say that is because the sales cycle is short. And as I was talking about earlier with CEOs, you want to meet with decision makers. And so if you meet with a high net worth investor, they are the decision maker and the sales cycle can be 2 weeks. Venture capital, the sales cycle can be many, many months. And you got to be careful also meeting with large institutions to raise money. And the reason I say that is, and I'll give you an example for myself. When I started my hedge fund many years ago, I met with tons and tons of people. And my roadshow was like all over the world. And I went to Quebec, went to Montreal, and I got a meeting with Caisse d'Épôt, which is the biggest pension fund in Quebec. I was like, oh my God, La Caisse, I got a meeting with them. This is awesome. And so I sat down with an analyst from Caisse d'Épôt to pitch my hedge fund. And the meeting was supposed to be 30 minutes. It lasted 3 hours. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And so, of course, I asked for the sale. I said, well, I'd love to have you as an investor. Can I send you the subscription documents and investment offering memorandum? And I'll never forget this. He said, no, I'm very impressed with you, Chris. What we're going to do is we're going to monitor you for 3 to 5 years, then we might invest. Then I realized that analysts that work at these big firms, and I made the mistake of not talking to a decision maker, but analysts that work at these firms, their job is to take 750 meetings a year and invest in a handful of companies. Why 750? Because they work 250 days a year and they take 3 meetings a day. Always go to the decision maker. Okay. You got nothing to lose, too. Okay. And for those of you that feel, for those of you that feel kind of shy and antisocial, I used to be like that too. I remember when I used to work at Accenture, I was a programmer or a developer, and I loved coding. But then I'd go to parties at night or meet with senior executives, and I was kind of nervous. So what you have to do is you got to challenge yourself. Move to open spaces. If it's challenging for you and you feel nervous, I promise you your competition feels equally as nervous. And I want you to run towards your fear. And after a while, it becomes second nature because you condition yourself to love it, to love networking. And if you're nervous, just tell yourself, this is my aunt or uncle I haven't seen in a while. And just be you, because everybody else is taken. I ripped off that quote from Dr. Seuss. Okay. All right. Next up, Plano Be Life wrote, my passion is to read. Awesome. And what I love doing is listening to audiobooks on Audible. I recommend everybody subscribe because it'll force you to, it's kind of like getting a gym membership, you'll go. It'll force you to read more or listen more. I just finished Elon Musk's book, written by Walter Isaacson. I recommend everybody read it. It's 20 hours on Audible. It is amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, absolutely love it. Yeah. And I'm also very well read. Yeah. Okay, it took me 24 minutes to come up with bad dad humor. Sorry. Okay, next up, Pulasi wrote, Chris, why are people not talking about NFTs? What happened to NFTs? Yeah, interest rates went up. So whenever interest rates are very, very low, people invest in very speculative asset classes. So when interest rates were basically zero during the pandemic, basically the government was telling you, don't leave money in the bank, invest in other stuff, which stimulates the economy. And the lower interest rates are, the more speculative the better speculative investments do, right? And as interest rates go up a lot, the more stable, higher dividend yielding stocks do well, right? So that's why. That's why. Also, I think a lot of people are like, I love Ethereum, okay? And I own a ton of it. I own a ton of Bitcoin. I'm never selling. And by the way, the ETF news for Bitcoin is incredibly positive longer term. I can talk about why if you want me to. But what I love about Ethereum is that it's not just a cryptocurrency. It's a platform. And the best business models on the road mean the platform. And what Ethereum is it's not only a crypto, but it's where most ICOs happen, which is like an IPO, but for cryptos. Also, most NFTs are made on the Ethereum platform as well. So if you want to invest in NFTs, the best way to do it is really Ethereum. Yeah. But it was a massive bubble, and human nature doesn't change, right? So the NFT bubble that we saw a couple of years ago, it was kind of like the dot-com bubble from 1999. And also like the tulip bubble in the Netherlands in the 1600s, where tulip bulbs went up thousands of % overnight, which led to the creations of the futures and options market. It's interesting. Yeah. But should you invest in NFTs? Yes, if they're baseball cards or basketball cards, or maybe Pokemon cards too. And you always want to look at supply, right? And NFTs are hated now, which is why I'm starting to nibble a bit, right? You always want to be a contrarian. And buy when everyone else is freaking out. And any asset class you buy, you have to look at underlying supply. My grandfather used to always tell me, and God bless him, he'd say, Chrissy, buy land. They're not making it anymore. So when you invest in NFTs like baseball cards, for example, you want to make sure the supply is very low, like only 5,000 or 6,000 cards. Those will go up a lot in value longer term. It's kind of like when you buy a piece of art. NFT is kind of like a piece of art. And you look in the bottom right-hand corner of a print of a piece of art, and it says number 200 out of 500 made, that sort of thing. Always look at supply in every industry. Manas, how are you, man? Great to see you. And thank you for that comment on my Billions vlog. I just liked it and loved it. You wrote, good morning, my dear mentor. Great to see you, brother. What a wonderful day today. Every day is great. Thanks. You wrote, you look like Wall Street pro as you are. Thank you. Chris Gordon Gecko Haroun. Thank you. And for those who are not familiar with Gordon Gekko, that's from the movie Wall Street 1987, Michael Douglas, who got Best Actor for it. Great movie. And I made a vlog on that one as well, 37-minute vlog on Wall Street Pro reacts to the movie Wall Street. Check it out. You wrote lovely vlogs as far as with the series I'm watching Gordon Gekko movie. Thank you. It's fun, man. And in my MBA program, for those that registered for it, I have a character named Gordon Lizard. And that's it. And he's a finance expert. He's a jerk, though. It's me with a big wig. And that's a play on Gordon Gekko. Yeah. I have multiple personalities. Yeah. Next up, Volo wrote, hi, Chris. Hey, I'm starting a SaaS business, meaning software as a service, cloud-based company. However, I have trouble getting a response from startups about an urgent and important problem they are facing, so I can develop my service, you wrote here, with this knowledge. Yeah. The best way to network, as I was mentioning earlier, whether you're trying to get a job or you're trying to meet with a business partner or customers, is to leverage LinkedIn, okay, and send emails, or you can go to shareholder meetings. You have nothing to lose. Go right to the top. Always go to the decision maker. You have nothing to lose. Yeah. And if you have follow-up questions, please let me know. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, rates are coming down. Do you think Wall Street greed will create a crisis due to Bitcoin and crypto long term? What do you say? Yeah. So usually as rates come down, as I was talking about earlier with NFTs, as rates come down, more speculative asset classes tend to go up, right? And that can also be expectations of rate cuts, right? Depending on what the market is pricing in. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, right now, everybody loves it again because of the ETF announcement. And the reason why that ETF announcement for Bitcoin is incredibly bullish, and I'm never selling my Bitcoin, is because when you try to invest in cryptos, right, if you don't buy ETFs, you have to get a wallet. And this here is a Ledger Nano, the latest version. And the problem with these things is they're so damn complicated to use. You have to plug it into your USB port, right? Then you transfer the Bitcoin to it. Then there's a million different passwords you have to enter in. And at the last second before you buy Bitcoin, you kind of cut your order in half because you're nervous. Well, we got rid of this. You don't need this anymore. You can just buy Bitcoin ETFs from very credible ETF companies. That is incredibly bullish. Yeah. But I tend to want to buy investments when everybody hates them. You know, as Wayne Gretzky, and I'm a proud Canadian, but as Wayne Gretzky said, you know, he was successful not because he skates where the puck is, but rather because he skates where the puck is going to be. And by the same token, I want you to invest in companies that investors are going to like. And as Warren Buffett said, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. Just be a contrary. Okay. Next up, Logan. Hey, Logan, first time I've seen you. I hope you join us again. Logan wrote, Chris, I love your videos. Thank you. Great movie you got to see from 1976 called Logan's Run. So good. You wrote, I'm in college recruiting for investment banking. However, I put together a beverage I believe has potential to scale exponentially. How do you know when to switch focus? Yeah. So what I would do is this. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And so I recommend writing a thorough business plan before even considering spending a penny on any startup. And in my MBA degree program, which you can learn more about from my website, there's a venture capital boot camp where I ask you 700 questions. You answer all of them with me. Then I help you understand whether or not you should run this business or start this company. And when I advise my students on companies to start, after they've written the business plan, I recommend keeping expenses at zero. That's right, or close to zero. And I have to practice what I preach. And so in my business right now, it's a big business, humbly, but I have no employees. I have contractors, lots of contractors. And I run an S corporation. I keep expenses extraordinarily low. And I teach you the exact same methodology as well. Write the full business plan first. Yeah. And if you're, and I'm publishing a vlog tomorrow, a Billions vlog, where I talk about should you meet with a headhunter or not. And whenever you meet with a headhunter, or if you send emails and you're working for somebody else, and it's emails about a company you started, if the company gives you one of these things here, that's my son, what I want you to do is buy the exact same model for yourself if you have the budget. And I want you to conduct all headhunter meetings using your personal device, okay? Never your corporate device. And don't ever tell your personal device what your corporate Wi-Fi address is. And of course, use either LinkedIn or your Gmail to communicate this stuff. Yeah, for obvious reasons. Yeah. I know some of you might be thinking, wait a second, Chris, you seem like an ethical guy. Why are you telling us to be, disloyal? If a headhunter calls you and you're working at a big company. Well, let's define loyalty. You're loyal to your family first and your company second. It's worth it taking these meetings. Yeah. And what happens quite often is a lot of companies, because of pressure from shareholders, are very short-term focused, right? And they don't cut into fat, they cut into muscle. Like they overfire. And that could happen to any of us at any point in time. So it's always good to have a plan B. And if you don't, you're not being loyal to your family. And we love the color blue. Actually, the reason I have blue behind me is because my eyes are green. Thanks, my Irish grandmother. And I can't do green screen. In fact, if anybody has green eyes in movies, they have to put on contacts when they use green screen. Yeah. Plus, I love blue because of the Blue Jays. All right. Give me 1 second. And then in terms of, let's say you start a company and you're not sure, should I make my side hustle my full-time gig or not? Well, the go or no-go decision is when your trailing 6 months of revenue is greater than your annual salary. And the reason I say trailing 6 months is because you never want to base a business on 1 month or 2 months or 3 months of performance because of the seasonal nature of business. If you start a company October 1st and it's now January 1st, 3 months later, and business is amazing, and you think, I'm going to quit my company. Well, you got to be careful because Q1 is usually seasonally slow. Yeah. Okay. Manas wrote, thank you for everything, my mentor. God bless you all forever and ever and ever. See you next week and forever. Thank you and God bless you. And what always gets me into a peak mental state before I get up out of bed, what I do is I thank God for 10 things in this order. Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, Christine, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sisters, Katie, and Elizabeth, and all of you, my students. I am grateful. Thank you. Next up, Rahul wrote, what is the best resource, according to you, to follow recent news and trends in macroeconomics and finance? Yeah, hands down, it's the Financial Times. Right, so the Financial Times, and you can go to ft.com. The Financial Times is kind of like the Wall Street Journal, but it's more global in nature, right? And it's from England. It's kind of like if you want to, oh my God, here I go. If you want to look at American political news, don't watch Fox. Oh, I'm going there. Don't watch Fox News because it's too far right. Don't watch CNN because it's too far the other way. I'm not telling you which affiliation I have, and I tend to go back and forth. But if you watch BBC, it's more neutral. Yeah. And that's what the FT is as well. And the FT is great because it tells you how the world works from an interest rate perspective and macroeconomic perspective. And also there's something there called the Lex column, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's great. But what I do every day before I start these calls, when I'm brushing my teeth, I do exactly this. Alexa, what's the Wall Street Journal news?
From the Wall Street Journal.
ADP knows
Alexa,
anything
stop.
you hear, anything you don't hear,
There's an ad first, and then what happens is I get 5-minute snapshot of the most important news. So listen to the Wall Street Journal news as well on ALEXA every day. Yeah. In terms of finance news, yeah, I do the Wall Street Journal as well as the FT. And if you want to read something on weekends, read Barron's, which is kind of like the Wall Street Journal Saturday edition. But make sure you focus on the FT because it's more global in nature. Yeah. And you're most welcome, Chris. Andre, thank you so much, buddy, for that. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. God bless you. That will go directly to Project Magoo. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next up, Sam wrote, how can I obtain an internship or gain experience in the finance field as a high school student? Yeah. It all comes down to networking. Yeah. So step 1, have an amazing LinkedIn profile. Step 2, reach out to graduates from your high school that work in finance and just ask for an informational meeting. They're going to take the meeting, I promise you. Why? Because of this. Let's imagine it's 20 years in the future and you're 20 years more successful than you already are today. And somebody 20 years younger than you reaches out to you that is exactly like you and asks for a meeting. Would you take that meeting? Of course you would. Network like crazy. Your network is your net worth, and relationships are more important than product knowledge. Yeah, yeah. And that's what my son Andrew did. So he's just finishing second year at Berkeley. He networked like crazy. Right? He set up so many informational meetings with people that work at Apple, different companies, and he just got a job in financial services this summer by networking. Yeah. And most people that are younger, it's interesting. They think that, when you're younger, if you keep your head down and you do well in school, you get good grades. Life works. Your parents are proud of you. You're proud of yourself. More importantly, life works. Then you get out into the real world and you work at a company and you keep your head down and you work very, very hard and you think you're going to get noticed. Then after a year or two, you look around and you're like, hey, what's going on, man? These people are getting promoted faster than I am. My peers are getting promoted and raised. Why not me? I did a great job. Because they asked. Ask and you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. You have to ask for a raise. You have to ask for a promotion. And anybody that's CEO or vice president or executive vice president, behind closed doors in one-on-one meetings, they've asked many times for a raise or a promotion. You always have to ask. So when you do these informational meetings, Sam, what I recommend doing is you bond for the first 10 minutes. And towards the end of the meeting, I want you to ask them for a job. Yeah. And if they say we're not hiring, then say when. And if they say in 6 months, reach out to them in 6 months. If they just say, no, we're not hiring, then you ask them, is anybody else that that also went to our high school might be hiring as well? Can you introduce me? And they will. Yeah. Why? Because they would have helped themselves in hindsight too. Okay. Carolyn, how are you? From Nova Scotia. Hope you're doing well. Congratulations on the investment property you bought in Nova Scotia. And Carolyn's one of my silver MBA students. I see her every single Thursday at 10 a.m. On the weekly silver call. And her internet is powered by Starlink too, which is pretty cool. Okay. Next up, MTI wrote, I'm reading Elon Musk's book per your recommendation, Chris. Awesome. It's interesting. I'm learning so much. Thanks for the recommendation, Chris. Appreciate it. You're most welcome. And that's the best way to learn about business, right? When you listen to biographies or autobiographies, you're learning real practical stuff. You're not learning BS theory, like supply and demand charts that nobody uses. Yeah. And if you're not sure what your passion is in life, another thing you can do is listen to biographies or autobiographies from people that inspire you. And if they inspire you and it doesn't feel like work when you're listening to it, that's your job. That's your career. I shouldn't call it a job. I should call it your passion. All right. Next up, Dario. How are you, Dario? I remember when he first came on the call like 4 or 5 years ago, I said, it's me, Dario. Yeah. Don't ask me why I have this. I'm doing a case study on this in one of my vlogs. Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you, buddy. Speaking of Nintendo and Japan, you wrote here, hi, Chris. Hope all is well there. In your opinion, why is the Japanese stock market at an all-time high? Yeah. Yeah. And this is ticker 7974. And I met with the CFO, actually. I'll tell you my story about it. I met with the CFO of Nintendo when I was in Japan years ago. So Japan's at an all-time high right now. The Nikkei just passed the peak it had back in 1989. And the reason is because inflation is not as much of a concern in Japan. And so interest rates are still artificially low there. That's number one. Number two, Japan has been unloved for decades by investors, but earnings are growing. As a result, value investors love Japan because a lot of stocks are cheap. Number three, a lot of investors, for geopolitical reasons, are a little bit less inclined to want to invest in China. And if they want exposure to certain regions of the world, the go-to place is Japan. Yeah. And we saw a lot of headlines a week or two ago. Germany just passed Japan as the third largest economy in the world in terms of GDP, meaning revenue for the country. Number one is America, China, Germany, then Japan. Right? So a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, Japan is unloved and valuation is cheap. Yeah. Okay. Now I got to tell you my Nintendo story. So years ago, I was working at, I think it was Citadel hedge fund. And back, it was in January of 2006. I flew to Japan and I met with tons of CFOs and we invested in Nintendo, or at least I did personally, because of the Wii, right? I was really excited about it. And when I met with the CFO, he was expecting me to ask tons of questions about finance. And instead of that, because I love the company and I played the games growing up, I said to him, I said, why? And I had a translator there as well. And so I said, why don't you release an amazing Mario game every single year? Right? Like on every console, the 8-bit, 16-bit, 64-bit, Wii U, Switch and Switch 2 next year. You have one flagship Mario product like Mario Odyssey. Why don't you do that every year? They're so good. Why do you wait 5 or 10 years? And the same thing can be said with Grand Theft Auto, with Take-Two. And the reason the CFO told me, he said, well, it's kind of like Walt Disney. And he said, Walt Disney doesn't just release movies about Mickey Mouse, and this is, I'm dating myself here, or Donald Duck or Goofy. It uses other IP. And from a portfolio management and risk exposure perspective, if all we made were Mario games, then we'd have all of our eggs in one basket. And we're a very paranoid company. At that point in time, they had $8 billion on their balance sheet, which was a lot for them back then. Very paranoid. And so we said, the same developers that create these games also create the Zelda games and the Pokemon games and the Pikmin franchise, etc. So there's only a certain number of developers that are good enough to make amazing games. And it's all about portfolio management and diversification. I thought that was interesting. And he had a good chuckle because I was asking those questions instead of finance questions. The same thing with Take-Two. Grand Theft Auto is coming out next year, GTA 6. And when it comes out, you're not going to see me for at least a month, okay? I'm going to be dead to everybody because I'm just going to be nerding out playing that game forever. But Grand Theft Auto, Take-Two, ticker TTWO, they don't just make GTA products. That's too much exposure to one game. It's kind of like only having a one-stock portfolio. And the same developers that work on GTA also work on Red Dead Redemption and other IP they have. Yeah, so. All right. Next up, Rajesh wrote, "You've been my only mentor in my entrepreneurial journey. Thank you. It would be really close to me if you read my business case and give me your useful criticism or judgment. I will mail it to you if you want." No, thank you so much. God bless you. And then you wrote also, "I love it that you have so many tools which you use in your presentations, teaching us presentation skills without teaching it." Thank you. God bless you. If you ever I'd love to meet you in real life one day. I'm a very tiny man. I'm really, really small. No. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have. I have 1.5 humbly, and I'm grateful, million students. It's hard for me to answer any emails. Best way to reach me is here through my MBA programs and stuff. Yeah. Thank you. But you can always ask me here every week for free. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Ralph wrote, "Hey, Chris, do you believe the first trillionaire will be from clean energy?" I mean, if anybody is going to do it, it'll be probably be Elon Musk, right? I mean, he's exposed to so many different companies. Yeah. So I think it would be him. Yeah. But I'd be really careful about investing in clean tech companies because quite often they only exist and are only relevant and cash flow positive, if at all, because of massive government subsidies. And so I'll never forget, it was in the fall of 2008 when bank machines were within 24 hours not working. And a lot of solar stocks got murdered, like First Solar, ticker FSLR, which is a great IPO I invested in 2007. All these stocks got murdered. And the reason is because a lot of governments almost went bankrupt. And so in Spain, for example, which was the largest market for solar at that point in time, what they did was they canceled all the subsidies across the entire country pretty much for solar. And the entire market collapsed. And so you want to be careful not to invest in companies that only exist or only relevant because of massive government subsidies. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, a child that gets a massive allowance every single year. His parents are billionaires, and then he has to stand on his own feet, and he can't. Right? And so there's when it comes to Darwinism, for example, I think those are the best investments. And I'll give you a great example, speaking of Japan, which we're talking about a lot today. In 2001, Michael Porter, who's a brilliant economist and a professor at Harvard Business School, he published this unbelievable book called Can Japan Compete? And I bought more than 100 copies of it. And I sent it to all of my clients when I worked at Goldman Sachs and I was doing Japanese equities. Can Japan compete? Of course they can. But what he did was he analyzed the Japanese economy. It was fascinating. You know, after World War II, for obvious reasons, the entire Japanese economy was in shambles. It was broken. And so what the Japanese government did, which is logical, was they gave tons of subsidies to every sector to rebuild Japan, except for two sectors. The two sectors that got nothing were consumer electronics and autos. And those, there's lots of successful Japanese companies in every sector, but they're definitely most successful in consumer electronics as well as automotive. And so the bottom line is when it comes to clean tech, you never want to just invest in companies because of subsidies. You want them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet without a government crutch, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. You don't want to see the floor in this office. Okay. Next up, Chris wrote, "How would you define an informational meeting?" Yeah, informational meeting means you just want to learn more about the industry or the company or the sector. And I remember when I was, I think I was working at Accenture back in the 90s. I thought, hey, maybe I'll go to law school. And so what I did was I set up a ton of informational meetings. I met with lawyers, and I asked, what's a day in the life like? And then after those meetings, I realized to myself, are you a jerk before you go to law school, or do they teach you that in law school? And I'm just kidding if you're a civil rights lawyer or if you represent me. But I decided, after finding out a day in the life of a lawyer, and I also went down to Harvard Law to, sit in classes and stuff, it just wasn't for me. So those are informational meetings where you learn more about a sector or company, etc., to see if you're passionate about it. And my job, humbly, is I'm your waiter, okay? When you go to a restaurant, you look at the entire menu, okay? You don't order everything. You look at the whole menu, and maybe you order one or two things. My job is to be your waiter in terms of you finding a career you're passionate about. I expose you to everything in my MBA degree programs and my courses. And you pick what you're most passionate about. And this is where I proposed to my wife in Paris. She said yes. And MBA does not stand for married but available, okay? Okay, next up, Devon. I wrote, hey, Chris, how are you? I'm always great, thank you. You wrote here, Jeff Bezos has sold another 14 million Amazon shares, yep, worth around $2.4 billion, and he'd sell up to 50 million shares by the end of 2025, January 25. How can this impact the markets, please? Yeah. So Jeff Bezos is kind of in his post-Microsoft, Bill Gates, give back point of life, right? He's cashing out. He's no longer that active at Amazon. And so what he wants to do is to donate a lot of money and also, compete with Elon Musk in terms of space. And whenever a CEO or whenever a founder leaves a company or is no longer engaged in the day-to-day operations, I always sell the stock. Always. And what you can do if you want is do a search on my name and venturebeat.com, which is the #1 VC publication. And you'll see an article I wrote about this in 2013. I think the title was something like, when a founder leaves a company, investors should run for the exit. And one of the reasons I feel that way is because founders, they have the backing of the board. They can do whatever they want. Like Jeff Bezos would hardly ever get on earnings calls. He didn't care. He's long-term focused. And because he's such a rock star, investors will let him do whatever he wants. And they don't hold him to trying to be really profitable every single quarter. He's got a long-term perspective. And the best investors and entrepreneurs are long-term focused, like Warren Buffett. When a founder leaves a company, you have a bunch of other executives that are trying to climb the corporate ladder. And if they try to take a risk to innovate a new product and they fail, they're done. They're no longer climbing that corporate ladder. And if they're successful, they're not going to get paid that much more. So all they know, and I'm being a little bit skeptical here, but hear me out. I'm being extreme to make a point. All they know is corporate politics. So why innovate? And I once had a good friend that worked at Hewlett-Packard for years before the company was broken up into two parts. And I remember meeting with him in Palo Alto at their headquarters. And I was helping him with his resume because he said he wants to leave. And so I said, well, what have you learned in the past couple of decades here at HP? And he said, well, quite frankly, the only thing I really know is how to navigate HP corporate politics. And that's not a portable skill. Okay. But when it comes to insider selling, don't be scared if you see 10b5s. So what that means is people like Mark Benioff, who's the largest employer here in San Francisco and a wonderful humanitarian. He owns a lot of shares in Salesforce. And he automatically sells a little bit every month. Don't let that scare you. Because 99.9% of his net worth is in Salesforce. So he has to sell some over time. He'd be fiscally irresponsible if he didn't. What you want to look at are the Form 4s. Massive insider selling. Like massive insider selling. Like somebody selling half their stake. C-level executives. And that's all publicly available. And you can also be a contrarian in terms of looking at what Elon Musk has done and invest with him to make money. What do I mean by that? Well, the most successful entrepreneurs, like Elon Musk, and the most successful investors, a lot of billionaires, they're unemotional. And that is an amazing trait to have. And so Elon Musk, in March of 2020, when we were in when the pandemic was destroying all markets globally and the price of oil went to negative $20, the futures market, what he did was he backed up the truck and he bought a ton of shares in Tesla. Then he sold those shares in late 2021. I think it was 6 weeks before the market peaked in January 2022. And you can get all that detail and you can back test it and regression test it from a behavioral finance perspective. And that's called a Form 4. Yeah. And a lot of sophisticated investors, what they'll do is they look at behavioral finance, which is something that was pioneered by Dick Taylor, who just won a Nobel Prize in finance. And his mutual fund out here is called Fuller and Taylor. But behavioral finance means you look at insider buying and selling and you run a regression analysis to see if there's a pattern. And for example, this is all publicly disclosed. Years ago, I used to meet with the CEO of Activision, Bobby Kotick, a lot. Ticker was ATVI before Microsoft bought them. And whenever Bobby sold a lot of shares, the stock would go down a lot a year later and vice versa. And I remember meeting with him, right? And I said, Bobby, and I was careful how I asked him. I said, how should we think about the fact that you're selling tons of shares? And he said, well, what do you want? My wife, she has expensive tastes. Right. So, but you can always back test it and do a regression analysis in Excel. Okay. Next up, Toby wrote, in my experience, it's quite challenging to get into hedge funds. Why is this the case? Yeah. Because they don't really have HR departments that go out and recruit. And also by law, hedge funds can't really advertise, right? And they're secretive and they're small, right? A lot of hedge funds have fewer than 10 people. So how do you get into a hedge fund? You network like crazy using the methodologies I've talked about on this webcast and previous webcasts. And what I also recommend doing is when you bring your resume to meet with hedge funds or any company, on the back of your resume, you do a one-page write-up. And for a hedge fund, it could be on a stock. And you put it, and I'll show you an example actually. And this is all provided in my MBA program, provided with all the tools. So this here, for those of you in my MBA program, you'll be familiar with this. This is one of the many tools I provide you with. And I created this, it's 30 megs. It's an Excel spreadsheet. They'll help you do research on any company, okay? And what you see here are qualitative research steps, quantitative, and financial research steps. And every single tab has got a video to click on for more details. And I have you go through and do a qualitative, quantitative, and financial analysis to help you build all your financial statements and value the companies as well. And what comes out of this are three things. Number one, a massive, massive detailed report that's like 150 pages. Number two, a dashboard here based on all the information you enter that analyzes everything about this company. And most importantly, number three, or threeth, as my son Andrew used to say, an executive summary. And what you can do here is you can print out this one-page summary. This is just dummy data from Apple. But when you print it out, I'll show you here. When you print it out, it's a one-pager that analyzes fundamentals, valuation, and technicals. And so what you do is you actually put this on the other side of your resume. And you bring tons of resumes with you with different stock ideas written on the back of them. And depending on the interview you have, you pull out the appropriate pitch. And I did this actually when I interviewed at a big hedge fund called Citadel. I interviewed, it was back in July of 2004 in Chicago. And I interviewed with my mentor, Carson Levitt, great guy. He hired me at a couple hedge funds. And during the interview, he asked me questions about tons of different companies, including Salesforce, because he grew up with Mark Benioff here in the Bay Area. And I pulled out one-pagers of Salesforce. And he asked, what about the competition? And I pulled out a one-pager for a company called Right Now, ticker was RNOW before Oracle bought it. And I had tons of these write-ups ready. And every battle is won before it's been fought. And he said, and I'm humbled to say this, he said, this is the best interview I've ever conducted. And he was George Soros' right-hand man back in the late 90s as well. And during the meeting, actually, at the very bottom of my resume, I wrote passionate about baseball. And the second he saw that, he sat back and he's like, oh, I didn't know you like baseball. And then we talked about baseball forever. And so he hired me at Citadel and another hedge fund called Pequot. And I have this baseball bat. My mom gave this to me when I was a kid for Christmas. It's a broken bat from Andre Dawson. And I had this in my office when I worked for Carson. And in 2007 here in the Bay Area, the All-Star game was here. And Carson called me at home one night. And my wife's like, oh my God, your boss called at home. I'm like, am I in trouble? And he said, Chris, you're not going to believe this. I just saw Andre Dawson. He's here for the All-Star game. He's at a restaurant. Do you want me to go to the office and get your bat to have it signed? And I said, oh, hell yeah. And so we got it signed. It's pretty cool. But sports is always great boardroom talk. Always, yeah. All right. And I remember when my Toronto Blue Jays won back-to-back World Series in 92, 93, I finally had something to tease my American buddies about, right? I said, oh, American pastime, eh? Looks like we won it 2 years in a row. And they said, yeah, so what, Haroun? Your Americans beat our Americans. Yeah. All right. Give me 1 second. And then KB wrote, really enjoying the MBA material. Thank you. Looking forward to learning a lot more. Awesome. When one teaches to learn. And by the way, I'm adding a brand new real estate elective exclusively to the MBA program this fall. Yeah, I'm working very hard on it. You wrote, question on implementation of software as a business. Should we do SaaS or implement our own proprietary software? Yeah. Oof. I would always prefer to use SaaS, software as a service or cloud-based products, unless it is very secure information, right? And if you're going to put secure information in the cloud, make sure to strip out social security numbers, etc. Yeah, and be careful too, because if you use any Microsoft product, Office 365, your stuff is saved in the cloud through OneDrive, right, automatically, and that's a security nightmare. In fact, if you use Python in Excel, which I teach in my Python course, if you use Python in Excel, it's deadly because it runs Python in the cloud through Anaconda. Yeah, so I would just be really careful from a security perspective. Yeah, and then Dario wrote, thanks, Chris, you're most welcome. Okay, next up we have Kevin, seen you in a while, hope all is well. Wrote, hey Chris, I'm an undergrad in computer science from India. I self-taught myself blockchain, and I'm highly invested in blockchain and AI. I want to apply for an internship at Web3 companies, okay, meaning like AR, VR stuff, yeah. Can you tell me how to make an amazing resume? Since I am self-taught and I have not great education or experience, all I have are my projects and future achievements. I love that question, yeah. So here's what I would do. I would create a website. You can go to squarespace.com or WordPress and create it easily. That showcases all of your projects, all the stuff you've done, all the apps you've created, the blockchain code you've created, whatever, just samples of everything. Then what I would do is on your LinkedIn profile or your resume, I would provide a link to that. For more details on my portfolio, please go to this website. That's what I would do. Okay. And then Devon wrote, in India, we say guru, meaning teacher, is God too. People say that we can't see God, but I can say I have seen God. For me, Chris, you are my... Oh, God bless you. Thank you. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. I'm here to humbly help always. Sanjay wrote, how are you? I'm great. Yeah, good to see you. And then Icy, thank you so much for that $15 Australian donation. I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, it goes to Project Magoo. Yeah, thank you. My wife's name is Magoo. No, that was an awful joke. I can't, oh my God, all this goodwill I built over the years is gone now. Yeah, sorry. No. Of course, it goes directly to Project Magoo. Thank you. You wrote, AI, my wife's name is Christine. That's why no one forgets their names, Chris and Christine. And it's awful. I go to parties with my wife, right? I met her when I was 24, but when I go to parties with my wife, everybody remembers our name. Because it's the same freaking name, Chris and Christine. So whenever she's beside me, and I'm awful with names, but I always go like this. Whenever I go like this, she'll introduce herself. I forget somebody's name. Otherwise, it's like, hey, you. And by the end of the night, I've lost like 8 layers of skin on the back of my neck. Okay, so Icy wrote, AI is playing a big role in a lot of white-collar jobs like accounting, and legal and 3D printing is playing a big role in blue-collar jobs like carpentry. You think we're heading to a jobless era? No. We will always adapt. Back in the 1980s, people were really worried about robotics, taking all manufacturing jobs. We'll adapt. We always do. And I think that we're going to be working fewer hours in the future, and profit margins are going to be a lot higher. And I recommend that all of you think about how to leverage AI to help enhance your career or your company. I think it's a beautiful thing. People said the same thing about Google. They said the same thing about Wikipedia. The teachers are like, oh my God, everyone's going to get this information elsewhere. All of our jobs are gone. But every industry is going to be dramatically changed by AI. It's no surprise that NVIDIA this morning or last night posted incredible results. Unbelievable. 69% operating margins. Yeah. Okay. But I think it was Sora, which is that AI technology that ChatGPT or OpenAI introduced a week or two ago. That's a game changer, man. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you can basically make a video of a woman walking on a rainy day downtown Tokyo. And it makes a video. It's only in beta right now. You can't get access to it yet. But it's perfect. Scary good. Really scary good. And if you get a chance, please read Eric Schmidt's editorial he wrote in the New York Times yesterday. Or pardon me, in the Wall Street Journal. And Eric Schmidt used to be the CEO of Google. And Eric is basically saying we need to keep AI in check before it gets out of hand. And I agree with that because, as Warren Buffett said, once we open AI's Pandora's box, there's no going back. And if you want, you can read a cover story by Bill Joy, one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems, from the cover of Wired magazine from the year 2000. I read it my honeymoon. Read that article, please. We can't let machines have too much autonomy. It's scary, really scary. Yeah. Yeah. But when you use Sora or when you've seen it, it's fascinating. It looks perfect except for hands. It can't get hands right yet. It looks kind of funny, actually. Yeah. Okay. But who knows, man? Maybe one day you'll say, I don't know, create a course for me to learn Python and have somebody better looking than Chris Haroun teach it. And I'm out of work. Yeah. All right. Now, I used to get, I tell you, during COVID, speaking of good looking, which I'm not, and I keep this on me just in case, but during COVID, I had so many more women check me out, right? Because they can't see the disaster underneath here, right? So it's huge. It is mass. This thing is, dude, I go through so much makeup, right? Because of this thing. It is so big. But the positive of that is that I can kick anybody's butt when it comes to skiing because this is aerodynamic, man. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, Ralph wrote, should you launch a clean energy startup now? Yeah. Only consider doing it if there aren't any government subsidies because you want your company to stand on its own 2 feet. In fact, never think about starting a company that's going to have more than 10% of revenue from any one customer in the long run. And write a full business plan first, please. Because failing to plan is planning to fail. And in my MBA program, I've got a venture capital bootcamp that'll help you with that. Okay, next question I've got here is Ryan. Hey, Ryan. Ryan wrote, hey, Chris, just wanted to share how I had my networking event with the Deloitte team. Nice. In Thailand, there's a U.S. Chamber of Commerce that holds seminars with management teams and companies. Just an FYI for others. I love it. And then you wrote, as shareholder meetings here is online difficult network. Yeah, Chamber of Commerce. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And, for those of you that have not met with your local politician, please do it. If you're in a Commonwealth country, it might be a member of parliament. In the United States, it could be your congressperson. Please do it. They're elected to serve you, and they can help you, right? And you got nothing to lose. And I had actually a congressperson, Mike Honda, over for dinner at my house years ago. Yeah, good guy. Okay, and then next up, Ake wrote, hi, Chris. I'm extremely inspired by your positive behavior. Thank you. Cut off all your negative friends. That was probably the best thing I ever did in my life, right? Because when you're a lot younger, or at least when I was, I'll be critical of myself. You hang out with sometimes people that are negative, right? And I, for friends of mine, if they were kind of a jerk to me or disingenuous, it was basically 3 strikes, you're out. Now it's like 1 strike. Like, what's the point? Makes sense to always upgrade your friends. Yeah. And that's why any company I've started, whenever I hire people, I always look for somebody with an incredibly positive attitude. Because somebody with a negative attitude, one person can destroy a company. Yeah. And then you wrote, you're always happy. Please tell us your secret. I often get angry. Yeah. And I think that ruins my chances to get a good place in life. Yeah, a couple things. Okay. So if you're ever in a certain mood, you're grumpy or you're burnt out, I don't want you to go to work that day. Because if you're in that mood, and we all get in that mood, we're all human, you could destroy your career. One bad glance or comment, whatever it is. And when I used to work for other people, I would take at least 1 or 2 days off a year that were mental health days. And, sickness is not just a physical thing. It can be a mental thing too. I remember I worked at Goldman when I was in New York, and I was just mentally drained. And I knew if I went to work that day, I might say something. It could be a CLM, career limiting move. So I lived in the Upper East Side, took the day off. I went to Tavern on the Green, had lunch by myself, went to go see a movie called The Rookie in 2002 by myself. It was wonderful. Yeah. But just take 1 or 2 days off a year for that reason. Yeah. In terms of happiness in general, we're all wired differently. But for me, if I don't exercise, I get real depressed, man. It's amazing how self-regulating the body is. And that's why in my office, I have a treadmill, okay? And so what I do is I get 20 to 30,000 steps a day on my treadmill while I work. And I've got one of these desks that go up and down. I don't want to bring it all the way up because it is really messy. Screw it, I don't care, this is me. Yeah. But so this goes all the way up here. And so what I can do, I like the bokeh there. What I can do is I can type while I'm doing this, right? And this goes up to, 6.5 miles an hour. And it gets me into a peak mental state. And I discovered this biohack years ago because when I was younger, when I used to get up 1 hour early to study, I was able to retain a lot of information. But then 10 hours of studying at night was not as good as 1 hour in the morning. And I realized this because I'm fresh. And if I walk like this all day long or even a slower pace, then it feels like I just woke up. So a 10-hour day is actually a 100-hour day. You can accomplish more. If you treat this right, this works gooder. Yeah. Yeah. Worth it. Everybody's got to buy one of these things. You can get them now for $299 on Amazon. They're cheaper than other treadmills because there's no sidebars. And you can roll them under the couch if you want to as well. It's a life changer. Yeah. Yeah. Also, what gets me happy and in a good mood is exercising. I installed a massive gym in my garage, which is the smartest thing a parent can do, I think, humbly, because your kids will use it. And if you lose them when they're teenagers to bad stuff, it's hard for them to recover. Right? So exercising is important in my house. Your body is a temple. Aside from that, nutrition. I try to drink a lot of water every day. And I do what I love doing. And I force myself to take 1 day off a week. It's sinful otherwise. And that's why a lot of great religions recommend taking off 1 day a week, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You have to do it. God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. He didn't have to rest. But for millions of years, we've known that you burn out if you don't take off 1 day a week. Yeah. And also, I found my passion. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Sanjay wrote here, recently, I read the investment bank managing director spend 1/3 to 2/3 of their life in traveling. Yeah. And give me a second. It jumped on me sometimes. During the GFC, Great Financial Crisis, in 2008, first time was the first time he spent time with his kids. Why? Then you wrote why traveling? Yeah, it's hard, man. Yeah. So consulting is tough as well. I'll get to banking in a second. I don't recommend anybody go work for a big consulting firm if you have kids, because what happens is, just like with wars, you go to fight where the war is. Same thing with consulting firms. You go to where the client sites are. Quite often it's out of town. So I don't recommend working in consulting or banking even if you have children. Do it earlier in your career if you want. In terms of investment bankers traveling, well, it's the same thing. Your customers that might want to go public might not be located in the city you're located in, like New York, for example. Maybe it's a company in Peoria, Illinois that wants to compete with Caterpillar, for example. You have to travel to where the work is. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah. And it's interesting because during the COVID crisis, this new mentality started out with the younger generation called YOLO, which I love. And YOLO stands for you only live once. And that's and so because of that, a lot of people don't want to work at companies where you have to travel. And you don't have to travel anymore because of Zoom, because of this. And as a result of the whole mentality of YOLO, you only live once, a lot of people are spending money. They're not saving, which is why the U.S. economy is doing well. That's a big deal because 2/3 of the U.S. economy is consumer spending. It's not big business. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Michael, how are you? Michael Nunez. Dr. Michael is based in Arizona. Great to see you graduate from my platinum program a year or two ago. Michael, that real estate course I'm creating is for you. Yeah. Yeah. Michael wrote, hi, Chris, what conference are you going to in Arizona? If it's in the Phoenix area, I'll spring for, oh my God, yeah. Oh, F&A. Yeah. You wrote, I will spring for lunch or dinner because your arms are short and your wallet's tucked in your pants. I love it. Yeah, dude. Okay. I'd love to meet up, but per that comment there, if we go out for coffee or dinner or lunch or something, when the bill comes, I'm immediately going to do this. Oh, look at me. I have alligator hands. I can't find my wallet. And T-Rex can't do push-ups. Yeah. Awesome. Dude. All right. Send me an email. I think it's in Phoenix. I think so. Send me an email. So I arrive. I arrive on. I'm only there for a day or two, but I definitely love to meet. Yeah. So send me an email to support@harounventures.com, and I will answer it personally. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to meet. Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. And my dad's a doctor too, so is my brother. They're radiologists, which means they fix radios. All right, next up, Sanjay wrote, do you teach DCF, PE, and PR in your MBA program? Absolutely. I teach you all three methodologies in a lot of detail. And the reason why you want to value companies using three methodologies is because one of your methodologies is going to be wrong. And you want to minimize the margin of error. So for example, as you can see right here, when I teach you how to model companies, here's PE, okay? Here's PR, here's DCF, and then we take an average of all three right here, all three for our target price. Okay. And then Byron wrote, thanks for the silver MBA class, Chris. You're most welcome. Thank you. It has helped me immensely also as a full-time pastor in networking. God bless you. And I read at my church on Saturday. Once a month, they have me read the first reading, second reading. Yeah. Okay. And then Mohammed wrote, hey, Chris, how are you? I'm always great. Thanks. Always good to see you. And then Plano B Life wrote, create it in Canva. It's simpler. Yeah. And I've been using that a lot. I actually just started outsourcing all of my thumbnails. You might have noticed that today's thumbnail is a little bit different. I love graphic art, and I love software as well. And remember this from the MBA program, enjoy creating with software. But I've just come to the realization that I'm not the best at creating thumbnails. And I was telling my son, Dylan, that creating your own thumbnails is kind of like keeping up with fashion trends. I don't know what's going to be in fashion a year from now, or, yeah. So anyway, I started outsourcing, which you'll notice a lot of my thumbnails are now made by this amazing dude that I got over Fiverr. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Mina wrote, "Hey Chris, you can ace any interview. You can ace any interview with your personality. Home run." Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. I was awful at interviewing for years. It was really bad because I was nervous and I over-prepared, and I couldn't get a job. And so one day, I was so fed up. I went to an interview, and right before it started, I told myself, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. And I was just myself. And I sat back, we talked about baseball and other things, and I got that job. And then I got the next job, and the next job, and the next job. That's why you always have to bond before business. And in your informational meetings or interviews, just be yourself, especially the first 10 minutes. So if you don't know what to talk about from a small talk perspective, listen to the news that morning. Go to the Twitter profile of the person you're meeting with, the X profile or Insta profile. See who they follow. They follow, I don't know, baseball players. You know what to talk about. Don't tell them, I was stalking you before this meeting and I saw you like baseball. But just make it natural. Yeah. Or just listen to the news and talk about newsworthy stuff. Okay. All right. Next up, Mina wrote, hi, Chris, can you advise me about a good stock for a beginner? Thank you. Yeah. So I would actually recommend an ETF. And that ETF is VU. Okay. And it's the lowest risk, one of the lowest risk investments you can make. And whenever I'm not sure where to put my money, I buy the VU. So let me show you here. So the VU, it's a collection of 500 stocks. Okay, which represents the S&P 500. NVIDIA is a big component of it too. And the reason I love this is because the very last company in the world to go bankrupt, so to speak, would be the U.S. economy. And this is how you invest in the U.S. economy. And the fees here are only 1 or 2 pennies per $100 you invest per year. Never buy mutual funds. And I would start with this. And then what I would do is I'd analyze the holdings. The biggest holdings here are technology, right? Tech stocks, 30%. It was 22% a year and a half ago, but tech stocks keep going up. And you can analyze the components here. And then you can pick one of the larger companies to do investment research on if you want to. Yeah. And in my MBA program, this is one of many templates I provide you with to do investment research on any company. Yeah. Okay. And if you're in my MBA program, you want to analyze a stock using that template I just showed you. What I would do is analyze a company that you're passionate about. Something that's fun for you. I don't know if you love using this product, then I don't know, analyze Apple. If you love this, analyze ticker 7974, which is NTDOY in America. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next up, Anonymous wrote, hey, I'm one of your students from Udemy. Can you give me some advice for making my first million? Yeah. Oof. Start saving. Warren Buffett once said, you want to spend what is left after saving instead of saving what is left after spending. Be cheap. Yeah. Be cheap. Have money come out of your paycheck always. This goes for everybody if you can do it. I know times are tough. But before you get your paycheck, I want money to be deducted automatically and go into ETFs, like the VU, for example. Out of sight is out of mind. And make sure you maximize your 401k, your retirement savings program. That's the 401k in the US is your retirement savings program. Overseas, do a search for what is a country equivalent of 401k in your country. And if all you did was you maxed out your retirement savings program every single year, like 20 grand or so, which is hard to do, you'll be a millionaire in 20 years. Yeah, but you can't get rich. There's no get rich quick thing. You got to be long-term focused. Yeah. Now, saving is good, but I think a better investment is this. Investing in yourself to start your own company. After you write your business plan, of course. Because every penny you put in that company can have 1,000,000% return if you do it right. And I'm here to help you do it. Okay. Next up, Devon wrote, is there any way to calculate intrinsic value for bond price, please? The way we find the value of share price. Yeah. So it all depends. So bonds, there's an inverse relationship to interest rates. Interest rates go up, the bond you own goes down, right? So that's basically how it works. And it's all based on the coupon you have as well. If there's no coupon, it's called a zero coupon bond. Okay. And it also depends on the risk nature of the bond as well. Right, I don't ever recommend investing in any bond that's below A rated. Otherwise, it's junk bond or high yield status. Yeah. Okay, next up, Ake wrote, I've seen AI tools that can be found on Google that are used to remove clothes. People are using this to make, blasphemous photos of females online. In my opinion, AI will cause people to leave social media. It is deadly, man. It really is. It's scary. It's scary. So I really do think, I'm a big fan of small government. I love Ronald Reagan as a kid. That's why I wanted to come to America. But at the same time, I think we need more government employees when it comes to regulating AI before it gets out of control. Yeah. And the European Union is doing this as part of GDPR, right? They are starting to create, monitoring systems. And a lot of big companies now have a chief AI executive officer. I presented to Dell recently, Dell on AI. And they just hired a chief AI ethics officer. I think every company is going to do that. And I think governments are going to create departments as well that are looking into AI ethics. Yeah, it's deadly. Yeah. Okay. Next. But I can't believe that there's no when I was a kid, watching television, there weren't that many TV shows, but I would never change a random channel and see, something X-rated, whatever. It was all, monitored, right? There's got to be a way to do this as well. There has to be a way that Apple or Google or whatever, or both of them together, create some kind of standards body, commensurate with what Tipper Gore tried to invent in the early 90s with the video game sector, ratings. There's got to be ratings on apps and within apps as well. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And then Benny wrote, Dennis Quaid, The Rookie, great film. Dude, I love that movie. Oh my God. It's probably one of the most inspiring baseball movies I've ever seen. I love. It's a real story too. He was a teacher. Some dude in his 40s made the MLB. Yeah, my dad used to tell me, Chris, those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach gym class. And I suck at sports. You're all out of luck. I'm just kidding. I love teachers. They can do. Yeah, great movie. I love that movie. I get shivers just thinking about it. And if you're ever not in the best mood, like imagine seeing a movie that didn't have a movie soundtrack. It'd be so boring. And so sometimes when I want to be in an inspired mood, I'll do something like this. Alexa, play the soundtrack for Band of Brothers.
Shuffling Band of Brothers, original motion picture soundtrack by various artists and similar tracks on Amazon
So
Music.
good. So good. Or you can do this. Alexa, play the soundtrack for the movie Interstellar.
Interstellar, original motion picture soundtrack.
Hans Zimmer.
Radio from Spotify.
Yeah. It's so good. And this will get you into this peak mental state as you listen to it. Make sure it's only classical music though, because if there's words in, I don't want to get a copyright strike, so I'm going to turn this off here. Make sure it's classical music only. If there's words in it, it's hard for you to focus. But I love it. You set the soundtrack for your life. Okay, and Devon wrote, Chris, whenever I'll plan to visit Canada, I'll book my appointments to meet you, please. Absolutely. But you're going to have to look really hard for me for bad humor reasons. I'm going to shut up now. By the way, on Apple TV, there's this great television show about Tom Brady, who grew up just around the corner from here. You guys got to watch. Even if you're not a football fan, it is awesome. You know, he was like a 6th-round draft choice, wasn't supposed to make it, and he never gave up. Yeah. He was so confident. And confidence is everything, man. It's the most important thing you can teach students or children. Confidence, always. Okay, next, Ali, it's been a while, man. How are you? Ali wrote, the SEC in my country released a 10-year capital markets master plan with a plan to boost the markets from frontier level to emerging markets level. Does this mean it would be a good idea to invest? Yeah. It doesn't matter what country it is or sector. It all comes down to same investment steps. And so I know that you graduated from my MBA program. What I recommend doing is go to EMS 4-2, that's Economics Management and Strategy, Semester 4, Class 2, and use this to do investment research on that company. Yeah, and if you have questions during weekly office hours for Gold and Platinum students, I can help you, of course. Yeah, and that's today from 11:20 till 1:20 my time. Zoom. Okay. Next up, Nicholas wrote, "Hey Chris, what is the name of the ring on your ring finger? I think it will it will make me cool like you." Yeah. So this here is it's an Oura ring, O-U-R-A. And what it does is it actually tracks my heart rate. It tracks my sleeping patterns. And it also tells me if I'm about to get sick. And that's important for me because if it tells me, hey, maybe you shouldn't exercise today, then I won't exercise and I won't get sick, for example. And this also monitors, so it's O-U-R-A, but it sucks. You got to pay like a monthly fee as well, but I think it's worth it. It also monitors my deep sleep. And deep sleep is the most important type of sleep you can get, right? Instead of just REM or rapid eye movement sleep. Because deep sleep, and you want to get at least 10% of your sleep as deep sleep every night. Deep sleep is when your brain repairs itself and when your muscles repair itself. And I learned that using this at night destroys deep sleep, right? Because the blue light here. And so what I did was over Amazon for $15 or so, I bought 2 pairs of blue blocking glasses that blocks out the blue light. This works. Check it out. So if you're going to use these things at night, make sure to wear blue blocking glasses. Yeah. And there's other hacks as well that I've learned to help with my deep sleep. Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second. I hear something. Wasn't sure what that was. Yeah. We have cameras everywhere, but yeah. Okay. Okay, next up, Rahul wrote, I'm forecasting that there will be another real estate bubble like in 2007 and 8 in coming decade. What do you say? I don't think it'll be nearly as bad, right? That was a once in a generation black swan rare type event. I don't think it'll happen again. Right there's the mortgage industry is much more regulated today than it was back then because of Bernard Frank, congressman, who came up with new laws. Yeah. Plus, from a credit default swap perspective, meaning the risk that big banks take on, they're not taking on that much risk anymore because governments are regulating them closely. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I do think that there's going to be a massive real estate crash, and we're currently in the middle of it, I think, for commercial real estate. Right? If you think about it, the pandemic taught us that we can all learn and work from home. Why do we need big cities? If the internet was created before big cities were, would we still have big cities? No. Yeah. All right. Oh, Mark, how are you? Mark is from Michigan. He's one of my platinum MBA students, graduated a couple of years ago. He writes all in caps, and I love it. And I told him always to do it because he reminds me of my grandfather, who was not yelling at me when he was typing emails to me. But Mark wrote, what's up, Professor Chris and the Global MBA gang? Thank you for telling me about that issue with the title of that Billions vlog last week. I corrected the spelling immediately. Thank you. You wrote, how do we get competitive intelligence? And can you recommend business is war books? Yeah. Sun Tzu and the Art of War. It's often quoted by Wall Street professionals. So you can read that if you want to. Aside from competitive intelligence, the best way to do it is whenever I would meet with company executives like CEOs in a company I want to invest in, I would meet with their competitors. And I would say, what are the biggest weaknesses of your competitors? And they'll talk forever. They won't shut up. Yeah. That's how you get competitive intelligence. Yeah. Within the law. Yeah. And there's other things you can do as well. You can do a search. You can go to company websites to see where they're hiring, what industries. So if Apple all of a sudden is hiring a gazillion people to work in the auto market, like auto hardware, then Apple might be making an auto car, for example. Yeah. And there's many other tricks as well. Yeah. I can go into more detail on that if you want me to. Yeah. Oh, you can also go to uspto.gov. That's United States Trademark and Patent Office, and see what patents are filed by companies. Like, we knew for years that Apple was making a VR product because they filed literally 5,000 patents on it. Yeah. That's how you get competitive intelligence within the law. Okay. And then Rajesh wrote, any great financial film apart from Too Big to Fail, and The Big Short. Yeah. I would check out The Wolf of Wall Street. I would for what not to do, and the movie Wall Street as well. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I did very, very detailed reviews on that. And I'm doing every single episode of Billions review as well, which drop every Friday at 9 a.m. West Coast time. Okay. And then, so aside from that, Billions. Billions is what I recommend watching. Again, go to my YouTube channel. I do a Billions vlog every Friday. And I teach finance lessons based on that. Yeah, it's fun too. And what I'll do is maybe in a little bit, I'll play one of those for you, just a new one I've got. Yeah. And this one that I, and Warren Buffett, I talk about Warren Buffett in this one. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. And then Forstack wrote, your crypto courses helped me so much. Thank you, Octavio. Thank you for that. God bless you. And I remember when I made that course, and I updated it too. When I made it, at first, I was like an 8 out of 10 positive on cryptos. And by the time I was done with that, I was like a 2 or 3 out of 10. You know, I discovered that most cryptos are an absolute scam. And my mission in that course was to help you create like an S1 document for cryptos. Yeah. Prop is here, so I can't find it. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote, are you going to make another crypto course? Your best crypto. Thank you for that. Yeah, no. I usually, I'm one and done. I move on to something else. Yeah. And whatever technologies are invented, I think can help my students in my MBA program. I learn those technologies immediately and add that to the curriculum. So I'll give you an example of what I've done the past year. So I've gone into overdrive in the past year. In fact, if you go to learn.harounventures.com, these are all electives I've added to the MBA degree program. So I made how to program in Excel and every feature in Excel. And a lot of you have seen that trailer. I partner with the smartest man on the planet, Luca Innocent, to make a ChatGPT course, another AI course with him, and a Python course as well. So I've gone all in on tech. And the way I think about it with my children, for example, my kids' jobs have not been invented yet. And the way they communicate with each other has not been invented yet. So as new technologies are invented, I think can help my kids and help you and help all of us. I'll work 24/7 to add that to the curriculum as free electives. And AI, like ChatGPT was released November, like a year and a half ago. And that's why over the past year, I've worked day and night creating tons of AI courses for my MBA students. Same thing with Python. Yeah. And the Python course is so detailed. Like I teach you how to use Python in Excel as well. And we teach you about Mojo, which is like a new version of Python that's 50 times faster. And as always, I use tons of props. This here is a Python snake. I teach you how to use pandas within it, lucadas, as well as polars. This is supposed to be a polar bear. It looks like something from Minecraft. And the reason it's called Python, right? And this is, I guess, Harry Potter. The reason it's called Python is because the founder of Python in 1991, he loved Monty Python. Yeah, he has a good sense of humor. And I have on the floor there, I'm not going to pick it up, I have a 9,200 Lego piece or structure of the Titanic, which I use to teach. Yeah. So everything we teach in that course is based on Lego, just to make it fun. Yeah. And the way we taught it was we used different levels, like level 1, level 2, level 3, and all the bricks are kind of messed up here. But anyway, that's supposed to be level 6, I guess. Yeah. But we had so much fun doing it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, next up, Sam, who's a high school student, wrote, is it realistic to expect that I could secure a finance-related internship during the summer as I transition from high school to college? What steps would you take? Absolutely. All you have to do is ask. Nobody does that in high school. It's usually undergrad. But all you have to do is set up informational meetings, as I explained earlier, leveraging LinkedIn. And then during these informational meetings, ask. Ask and you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Ray wrote, hey, Chris, hey, how would you structure your day for optimum productivity if you're a parent and a full-time employee with some flexibility on where to start and end an 8-hour workday? Yeah, absolutely. So in the MBA program, I also teach you personal growth. And in the first class, what I do is I introduce you to my scheduling system. And what I recommend doing every weekday is the night before, and again, this is a template from the MBA program. The night before, I want you to schedule each day, right? And I have this available to you in PDF format, PowerPoint format, paper format, of course, it's PDF and OneNote format as well. But I recommend writing out your schedule for tomorrow, tonight. And you write down your goals and everything you're going to accomplish. And you put it right by your sink, okay? And you wake up the next morning and you take that piece of paper, you put it in your pocket. You follow it all day long. Then at the end of the day, before you create tomorrow's schedule for weekdays only, I want you to score yourself. It's very subjective, but you take off 10% if you didn't, spend time with your family for dinner. Take off 10% if you didn't pray. That's just me. Take off maybe 20%. Take off 10% if you didn't exercise. Take off 5% if you didn't make it to this meeting. And then you write your goals here. And so you score yourself out of 100. It's subjective. It works. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. That's why when you go on vacation or you have a month or two off, you can't even find time to exercise. Yeah. But I would also, from an education perspective, I'd probably use more Audible-based products, kind of like audible.com, to listen to books on tape. I'm dating myself there. And also listen to the news, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then Sanjay wrote, hey, Chris, if you don't mind, can you explain LBO? Yeah. So LBO means leverage buyout, right? It basically means using debt to buy a company. And there's a lot of great private equity firms that do this. One example is KKR, Kravis Colbert Roberts. And Henry Kravis kind of invented that industry in the 1980s. And there's a great book you can read about that called Barbarians at the Gate, which talks about the LBO of the National Biscuit Company, meaning Nabisco. And if you want to watch a movie to learn about LBOs and private equity, You can watch a movie called Other People's Money with Danny DeVito. Yeah. And actually, Henry Kravis, who went to my business school, he went to Columbia, he actually came and guest lectured once. And I was so excited. And I sat front row. It's Henry Kravis, my God. And I was waiting for him to give us tips on how to do LBOs and private equity investing stuff. And all he did for an hour and a half was talk about charity, not just giving your money, which he does, but your time more importantly. And I loved him for that. And that had a prophetic impact on me as well. Okay. And then if a management team buys the company, then that's called an MBO, management buyout. Yeah. Basically, get a lot of debt and buy a company. And private equity firms will look at public companies that are being mismanaged, and if they're cheap, they'll take them private. They'll fix them, then they'll take them public again. Rinse, lather, repeat. That's how they make money. All right. Next up, Devon wrote, Chris, here in Ireland. Oh, I know you're from Ireland. Very, very cool. My grandmother's from Ireland. I'm Catholic because of my grandmother. Yeah, she has Irish roots. That's why I have green eyes. Yeah. You wrote here, here in Ireland, LIDIL announce price cuts in groceries. If there's a crash in the economy, will prices of everything stay elevated, or can we think we are heading towards deflation? Yeah. I'm following the United Kingdom more so. And I know that inflation is a bit of a concern there, which is why interest rates are high, but they are coming down. It's extraordinarily rare to see price cuts in groceries. I don't think I've ever seen it in my lifetime. But if you see massive deflation in all, basic staple products, that's deadly, especially as stagflation could occur. Yeah. One data point doesn't make a trend, but it's definitely something I monitor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When I said UK, I meant just England. Yeah. Okay. And then Rahul, thank you for that, Rahul. Rahul wrote, famous and recent example of an LBO is Elon Musk buying Twitter. That's right. He had Morgan Stanley financed a lot of it. Yeah. Although it was mainly equity based. Yeah. But there was definitely a debt component. Yeah. And if you want, you can listen to the book by Walter Isaacson. Walter Mossberg is a great journalist at Wall Street Journal. Walter Isaacson on Elon Musk, which is great. Yeah. I just finished it. It's 20 hours. It's superb. Yeah. He talks a lot about Twitter too. Very controversial. And then Zaid wrote, hey, Chris, if the stock, in the stock market, there are some stocks with high margins and they tend to go high in the long term. Can you tell or suggest fundamentals a stock will go up in a time span of 5 or 10 years? Yeah. So when you get margin expansion, what that means is revenue is usually growing much faster than expenses, right? Which means that profit growth is accelerating. And growth investors will slap a higher PE multiple on a company that has earnings that's growing quickly. And the way that I value companies and where I teach you in the MBA program is through many templates, including this one here. So what we do is we start here by building the income statement, right? And then we can slap on a PE multiple based on the growth rate of the company, right? Using PEG ratios, et cetera. Yeah, but this is all part of the one of the many templates I provide in the MBA program. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I tend to value companies based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. Never value a company based on this year's earnings or next year's. It doesn't make sense. You got to be long-term focused. It's the best way to invest. And Warren Buffett, whenever he invests in a company, he assumes the stock market's going to be closer to 10 years after he buys the stock. You have to be that long-term focused to be an owner, not a trader. Yeah. And I value companies based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years always. Yeah. That's why I can stomach volatility. When I buy a stock after I do my research, I don't know the path, but I don't know the path, but I know the destination. Yeah. It's also, you can sleep at night as well, instead of staring at your screen every day. Okay. Accounting Guy 2 wrote, what's the best way to learn new technology fast? Yeah, just take online courses. That's what I'd say. You don't learn from universities. It's too theoretical, and it takes them forever to change their curriculum. Just learn from online courses or go to YouTube. Yeah. Like, for example, Angela Yu. Check her out. Do a search on Udemy, Angela Yu. You'll thank me for it. She's probably the best teacher in the history of the world. Okay. And then Nathan wrote, what do you think about financial edge courses? Yeah, I've never heard of them. I'm so sorry. Yeah. But wherever you're going to learn about finance online, make sure it's not theoretical. You want people that have real practical experience. And I humbly pride myself in the fact that I worked at Goldman, I worked at the biggest hedge funds in the world, worked in venture capital. So I'm teaching you based on real life experience, never based on theory. Yeah. Okay. And then Mark wrote here, hi, bro. I've been combing through confidential information memos, and the profit margins are low on these businesses. It seems like the economic system is structured for us not to reach billionaire status. Yeah. If it's public companies, I'd be careful for obvious reasons about this. But if you want what we can do today, I know you're a platinum student, and all gold and platinum students get lifetime access to the weekly 2-hour Zoom call at 11:20 a.m. today, my time, which is 1:20 p.m. Chicago time, where you are. Let's talk, or Detroit. We can talk about that in more detail. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay. All right. And then Logix96 wrote, why do startup companies fail? Many reasons, right? Quite often it's because of a crappy management team. And that's why a lot of venture capital firms would rather invest in a company with an A management team with a B business model instead of investing in a company with a B management team and an A business model. A lot of time it comes down to management. And the jockey is more important than the horse. That's why the venture capital sector and sophisticated investors in private companies spend a ton of time analyzing the management team. You know, one of the flaws with business schools is they don't teach you how to analyze the management team. They just teach you to look at financials. Well, don't waste your time looking at financials if you don't like the management team. Yeah. And a lot of companies fail also because they run out of money, which is why people look at the burn rate, which means how much cash the company is burning each month. Yeah. And also because they don't have passionate enough salespeople, meaning a sales-driven corporate culture or an entrepreneur founder that's very sales-focused that can get investors and customers excited about the product. Yeah, there's many other reasons as well. But failing to plan is plan to fail, which is why I recommend writing a thorough business plan first, always. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so we got 13 minutes left. I'm going to play a 13-minute video, which is one of my Billions vlogs. I just released it, which teaches you a lot about what hedge fund Billions is actually based on. This is fascinating. And I also teach you about presentations and how to get amazing presentation skills for free online. And I talk about Warren Buffett as well. So God bless you guys. Quick reminder, next week I'm not here, but I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.
We will fight back hard. We will mobilize the war machine. And those who would try to bring down our house will see their own houses fall.
Let's talk about finance lessons from the 6th episode of Billions based on my work experience at Goldman Sachs in New York City and based on my work experience at the top hedge funds in the world. Now, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and stick around because at the end of this video, I'm going to grade the episode for Wall Street realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. 3 key topics in this episode that we'll discuss are number 1, how the government tries to get Dollar Bill, who is arrested, to cooperate with the government to take down Bobby Axelrod.
I want to put him on the rack and stretch him until he gives us X.
Topic number 2 is how the government tries to shut down Axe Capital, and it's astonishing how similar the government's case is to the real-life shutdown of hedge fund giant SAC Capital, meaning Stephen Cohen's firm. And topic 3, how Bobby declares war on the government and how he rallies his troops at his company by giving an Emmy-worthy speech, and why presentation skills really helped Warren Buffett and other billionaires to succeed.
This company came under attack, but it was an attack on all of us.
Now, District Attorney Chuck Rhodes finally has something to convict Axe Capital with, as portfolio manager Dollar Bill gets caught with insider information. But will Dollar Bill turn on Axe?
Give me Axelrod.
You know he's crooked and you know he's going down.
So you can cooperate and walk out of here free, or you can go to jail.
So Dollar Bill puts on his best poker face and is unemotional, as most Wall Street investors are. He then whispers this to Axe's attorney.
And he does not recognize your authority.
Not accurate. There's no way that Dollar Bill would disrespect the district attorney, and there's also no way Dollar Bill would use Axe's lawyer. He would get his own lawyer, as you can never trust somebody else's lawyer.
No deal.
You just blew up your family for Bobby Axelrod. I'm Kaiser Soze.
Also not accurate, but great writing. Nobody is that loyal on Wall Street. There are hedge funds, though, where there's an extreme libertarian corporate culture, where the fund managers think that they're actually above the law, and the corporate culture at these hedge funds are often a lot like a cult.
What is it with these guys? What is it about the cult of Bobby Axelrod that makes them want to immolate themselves?
Now, the genius of this episode is that these lawyers on different teams feel really comfortable having a confidential argument or conversation in a washroom. And I've had friends that worked at hedge fund giant Bridgewater, where they know that literally every single conversation they have is recorded at Bridgewater, except for in the bathrooms. And this creates a cult-like culture where you can't be yourself. And separately, to be intellectually honest, you have to wonder if there's envy from the government officials in these cases.
The whole city puts your boy on a pedestal, but he doesn't make anything. He doesn't do anything. He's nothing but a filthy money pig.
Strong words, eh? Now, the rich dude seems to always be the criminal in TV shows and movies per these examples here. Yes, Bobby Axelrod is a criminal, but many billionaires actually don't see it that way.
When did it become a crime to succeed in this country? America used to salute the guy in the limousine. They wanted to be the guy in the limousine. They still want to, but now they throw eggs at it.
Let's move on to topic 2 of 3, which is the obvious similarities between Axe Capital and Steve Cohen's SAC Capital hedge fund, which was shut down by the government.
Liquidate 2% of the fund immediately. That's our war chest.
$300 million.
Now, if 2% of Axe Capital is $300 million, then we can calculate that Axe manages $15 billion, which is the exact size of SAC Capital when the government went after it. And as you can see here, Axe is planning on settling with the government by paying the government a $1.9 billion fine, which is really close to the $1.8 billion fine that the government asked SAC Capital for when it shut down.
I just don't want Axe to walk away with a fine and a family office.
Accurate. When the government goes after a crooked hedge fund, quite often they pay a fine and they have to convert to what is called a family office, which is also what happened to SAC Capital. And family office means you can't take outside money and you can only manage your own money, which is a big demotion and it's humiliating for a lot of billionaires.
We're going to bleed out. We'll be a family office by the end of the year by SEC mandate or not.
Accurate. Bobby's sidekick Wags is referring to the fact that where there's smoke, there's fire. Because regardless of what happens with the lawsuit, investors are going to redeem billions of dollars, which is also what happened to SAC Capital before the government settled, as SAC Capital got a $1.7 billion redemption from a Citibank subsidiary because of the government lawsuit.
How many billions are out the door at the first redemption?
You should gate the whole damn fund.
So what Wags means when he says gate the fund is that top hedge funds, when you sign the investment documents, they have so much power or clout with investors that in that investment offering document, they stipulate that they can put up the gates, stopping investors from redeeming for at least 1 year. And this is exactly what happened with the largest hedge funds in the world in the fall of 2008, when many of them were down over 50%. So what they did was they put up the gates and didn't let investors redeem. And had they not done that, they would definitely have gone belly up. And a few years after, these funds that were down 50% or more in 2008, they actually broke even and removed the gates. And they got above their high watermark. And what that means is if a hedge fund is down 1 year, they cannot charge the 20% performance fee until they break even, meaning until they get back above their high watermark.
We know how Axelrod's operation works. He keeps himself insulated.
Accurate. Steve Cohen from SAC never went to jail, but his employees did. And the Department of Justice often releases a chest-pounding press release like the one you see here when the jail sentence is announced. And notice that we see in this press release that it was issued by the Southern District of New York, where Chuck Rhodes also works. And in the 5 years before the government tried to shut down SAC in 2013, No emails sent to Steve Cohen or sent by Steve Cohen weren't read first by a lawyer on his team. And all the dirty work gets done by his pawns, meaning his employees, so he is protected in his moat, so to speak. And this show is so well researched that even the Axe Capital office in Connecticut is very similar to Steve Cohen's old SAC office in Connecticut. And I once interviewed at SAC in Connecticut in 2003. And I had to walk through sharks cut up in glass in the lobby to get in. And during the interview, they tried to get me to tell them what the competing hedge fund I worked for owned. And it really felt unethical. And Steve Cohen sat in the middle of the trading floor with many cameras pointing at him. And those cameras were for him to talk to his position traders all over the world. For example, he would look at the camera for the Japanese equity trader and say, "Buy me 1,000 shares of Donkey Kong to represent Nintendo." And when I left the interview, I saw so many young traders getting into Ferraris and Lamborghinis in the SAC parking lot. Now, in this next scene, we find out how hard it is for Chuck to want to go after Axe for political reasons as he talks with a senior politician right here.
I speak for everyone. It's fundraising season. The administration needs Wall Street money to compete. Nobody wants us to look like some kind of crusade.
I'm doing my job.
Accurate. Many of the top donors to political campaigns are hedge fund billionaires, which is why for many years before the Obama administration, the government only went after the sell-side firms and not the hedge fund buy-side firms.
We'll petition for reinstatement after Rhodes leaves. After the White House turns over, we'll get it. You'll be managing outside money again within 5 years.
Accurate. The Trump administration fired top prosecutor Preet Bharara, who Chuck Rhodes' character is partially based on. And then by 2018, 2 years after this episode was filmed, Steve Cohen returned to managing other people's money with his firm, and his firm is called Point72, which has more than $30 billion in assets. So it's not a lifetime ban on running money if a new government is elected. So how powerful are some of these crooked billionaires?
He runs more money than the GDP of a European nation. He's untouchable.
Now, at the last second, when Axe is about to sign the government document and pay the government the $1.9 billion fine, this happens. I love that scene, but there's no way he would write a check for $1.9 billion. They would wire the money instead. Let's move on now to topic 3 of 3, where Bobby uses his public speaking skills to rally his troops.
This company came under attack by an unscrupulous adversary.
Now, the best entrepreneurs, CEOs, and even billionaire money managers are often incredible public speakers. They know how to motivate their employees. And it's not just what they say, but how they say it. And as Maya Angelou once said, people might not remember what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel.
What came next was a war that unleashed the might of America. What came next was a victory that left us as the most powerful nation on earth.
And you can learn presentation skills too to take your career to the next level for free. So how do you do it for free? Well, go to meetup.com and enter the city where you live. Then type Toastmasters and attend virtual or in-person Toastmaster events where you can practice your public speaking skills. Or what you can do is you can go to udely.ai and use artificial intelligence for free to help you present better. And for more details on udely.ai, please see the link in the description of this interview on a video that I gave with the CEO of Udely at my house. And this video is not sponsored by anybody. Now, Warren Buffett says that the main reason that he is successful is because he learned public speaking skills early in his career. In fact, Warren Buffett and I have only 2 things in common. We both took the Dale Carnegie public speaking course when we were 19, and we both graduated from Columbia University with a master's in business. And that's all we have in common, though, as he's uber wealthy. Now, Buffett does not have his Columbia degree on his wall. He actually has his certificate of completion from the Dale Carnegie public speaking course on his wall, and he credits this with his success. And you never get confused after watching a Warren Buffett interview. he can present much better than Bobby Axelrod can. And Buffett says things that we all understand, like the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. And you can't raise billions of dollars without being a great public speaker. So I recommend paying to take the Dale Carnegie public speaking course. Let's talk about grading for this episode for Wall Street Realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. The episode did a superb job at explaining the government investigation of Axe Capital by thoroughly researching the shutdown of SAC and by forecasting that even if Axe Capital became a family office, with a new government administration, Axe might be able to run outside money again, which is exactly what happened with SAC Capital. As a result, I'm going to give this episode a buy rating. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon in our next reaction video when we react to episode 7. Thank you.